I did not own this. Please watch Arnold's Christmas on provided streaming services. Yo. Alright, before we get into this one, I would just like to wish you guys all a very Merry Christmas, as this is my last video before Christmas comes. I hope you guys all have a great time, spend it with your family, spend it with your friends, have an awesome time, and honestly, it means a lot to make it this far here on this platform, and having you guys to back me up this whole time has been incredible. So, I'd just like to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas. But, let's get into the video. Hey Arnold is a very important show to me. Not only has the show influenced me, and it was the show that I watched growing up from about 4th to now, I mean, it's an awesome show, and there's a lot to love about it. And honestly, I think the episode that I'm covering today is one of, if not my favorite in the entire series. I think what makes the show so great is the way that the characters work. The dynamics and the storylines always find a way to make sense, and honestly, the show is just really enjoyable, and I feel like it relates to everyone because of the character diversity. Irregardless of who you are and where you came from, I think this show can reach out to anyone, honestly, irregardless of anything, and the show is really good at striking a blend between funniness and seriousness. It seems like every episode finds its own way to be unique and different, which I really appreciate about the show. But, if I'm being honest, I think I'm ready to go ahead and dive in. This is an important episode to me, and I want to treat it with all the delicacy I can. So, with that being said, let's dive in to Arnold's Christmas. The special begins with multiple shots around Arnold's city, and on top of this, we see a bunch of stuff, like close-up shots of buildings and areas we really don't see that often. Then, we see children fighting and snowball fights and people ice skating, and it's honestly a nice vibe. We see school release, and we see Phoebe ask Helga what she's most excited for, and her answer isn't the best.
What do you most love about Christmas, Helga? Are you kidding? The presents! I'm gonna make a haul this year.
Yeah, so, not the best answer per se, but it's Helga. I mean, what did you really expect? Afterwards, however, we see Helga and pretty much every girl in the series get excited over this pair of Nancy Spumoni snow boots, which will come back and be relevant later. We see Arnold and Gerald, and we end up learning that Gerald bought all of his family members a tie, which is absolutely hilarious. And we see Arnold kind of explain to Gerald that Christmas is more so about giving people unique presents, instead of just the same thing in different type of varieties. So, after this, we see Gerald leave to go get better presents for his family. We see Arnold head home, and we see Helga have a moment about Arnold. And honestly, every time these happen, they're kinda just weird. It's Helga being excessively obsessive with Arnold, and it's honestly just really weird, as I've already stated. Afterwards, however, we see Mr. Wynn make it home after a long day of work. Right before he heads in, Mr. Wynn gives us a look that, honestly, I really can't explain it, but there's something about it, man. Inside the boarding room, we see Oscar prank everyone during Secret Santa by putting his name in every single entry, which honestly, I kinda liked it. I thought it was funny, and for Oscar's standards, it makes sense. After the prank, we see everyone draw a name out of the hat, and we see Arnold get Mr. Wynn, who he's noticed is pretty sad every year around wintertime, and he really doesn't understand why, and neither do we. We see Arnold and Gerald having a snowball fight against other kids, and we see Arnold confused about what to get Mr. Wynn, and Gerald recommends a tie, obviously. However, Arnold explains he wants to get Mr. Wynn a genuine gift, so Gerald recommends talking to him, and Arnold sees this as a great idea.
What a great plan, Gerald!
Alright, before we get to the next part, I would just like to warn you guys there are some depictions of war upcoming, so if you're uncomfortable with that, please skip ahead. We see Arnold sit down with Mr. Wynn, where the two talk about things like candy and sweaters, and then we see Mr. Wynn hold up a picture of someone very special. His daughter, Mai. Mr. Wynn gets by the window and explains his backstory. During the Vietnamese War, Mr. Wynn was raising his daughter. However, due to the war itself, he couldn't give her the life he really wanted to give her. And we learned that because of the war, he decided to sacrifice his daughter so she could have freedom in a better place. And honestly, it's a very sad story, knowing that he gave up his daughter to have a better life, and just with a sliver of hope that one day, maybe one day, that he could find her. Honestly, it's truly devastating what this man had to undergo. I mean, you gotta think, for years, this man had to assume that his daughter has been here, and he still hasn't seen her. It's just sad, man. And it's really just heartbreaking. And Arnold's face says everything without having to say a single word. There's so much devastation just on the look of his face. He knows that if he could do something, he would. But it's just not in his control. And it bothers him. The next time we see Arnold is Christmas Eve, where he's with Gerald, and he explains to him that all he wants to do is reunite Mr. Wynn with his daughter. And Gerald says it's just such a long shot. And honestly, I understand that. I think Gerald is being realistic here. I mean, you have less than 24 hours to get a person, an entire human, in the presence of someone else who you don't know where they stay or anything about them other than the fact that they might live here. And if they don't, then it's just probably not gonna happen. It's very well understood, but like I said, it's a long shot. I will say, Gerald is very helpful in this episode. Seeing him stick with Arnold through the entire episode really shows how much of a brotherhood and great friendship the two have. And his support here is very much needed, and honestly, it's much appreciated. We then see Helga, who's being really thoughtful and is trying to find Arnold a present. However, she really can't find anything that she would consider perfect, for Arnold at least. Speaking of Arnold, we see Arnold and Gerald head into this government-facilitated building, where a majority of the staff members are having a Christmas party. However, there is one person still working, and...
Looking for a missing person named Mai Win. We think she lives somewhere in the city.
So what do you want me to do about it?
We thought you could find her for us. Please? She was separated from her father by a war. He's a really good guy. He's a friend of mine. I want to bring them together for Christmas.
And what a perfect Christmas present, don't you think, Mr. Bailey?
Look, kid, your story has touched me deeply. But to find your My Win would be a huge job. It would take hours, maybe even days. I can't do it at a time like this. Now, go on.
After this encounter, it appears that Arnold and Gerald have seemingly given up. However,
I did.
yeah,
No, I
so
didn't do the Christmas shopping
Mr.
yet.
Bailey has done none of his Christmas shopping, and it's December 24th. It is Christmas Eve. Now, I'm well aware that obviously when you have a job, it's hard to find free time to go out and buy presents. However, it's quite obvious that this man makes good money, and I'm sure he has some bit of time in his schedule, but I guess he just didn't want to do it, which I understand. However, this opens up a whole new opportunity for Arnold and Gerald. Arnold comes up with the great idea to basically do Mr. Bailey's Christmas shopping for him. In exchange, Mr. Bailey will find Mai Win. And honestly, it's a fair deal. You get one thing done, you help each other, and it's efficient for both sides. And due to his desperation, Mr. Bailey decides to let two fourth graders do his Christmas shopping for him. Luckily, though, it's the football-headed kid and his best friend Gerald, so you really got nothing to worry about. We see the shopping montage begin, and it goes well, until there's one item left, which is the Nancy Spumoni snow boots. Oh, and I totally forgot to mention, we see Helga buying Arnold a Christmas present. However, she keeps changing her mind as she just can't figure out which one would be considered the perfect gift. We see Helga run into Arnold and Gerald, where we see Gerald critique Helga's present to Arnold, and because of this, she changes her mind. And honestly, I don't really think this is necessarily mean-spirited on Gerald's behalf. He's very reasonable and actually gives pretty good reasons.
Frozen Tundra Delta Warrior 7000.
That's right. I guess if somebody got a present like that, they'd be pretty impressed by whoever gave it to them, don't you think?
Well, I don't know, Helga. Basically, it's kind of an expensive, flashy gift that isn't really personal and doesn't necessarily express any real feeling or understanding of the person you might be giving it to. No offense, Helga.
Also, in this episode, Gerald is phenomenal. I think he finds a good balance between humorous and thoughtfulness. he cares for others, and he shows it off in this episode. And him sticking with Arnold the whole time is super appreciative, and honestly, it just makes him one of the best characters in this entire show, and there's no denying that. Gerald in this episode is awesome, and being able to stick with your best friend the whole way through is really one of the best parts of this whole episode. I think having the friendship factor and sticking with someone who you've known for so long just so they can help someone else, it's honestly incredible, and honestly just a respectful thing for Gerald to do. And he's just so good in this episode, man. As they leave, we see their shopping list fall out, which reveals that they are missing the Nancy Spumoni snow boots, and this is the last item they need. And we see Arnold and Gerald go store to store, and they get nothing but laughed at. And honestly, it's just rude, man. I mean, these are like 4th graders doing someone else's Christmas shopping, and you're laughing at them. I mean, come on, man. That's just mean, man. I don't even know what to say. It's the only minor issue I have with this episode. The fact that these grown adult men laugh at these 4th graders, man. We see Arnold and Gerald make it back to Mr. Bailey, and this time they have every single present except the Nancy Spumoni snow boots. And because of this, it's just such a big deal that it causes Mr. Bailey to throw off the whole deal. And honestly, it's really dumb. At the end of the day, the snow boots have way less value than a person. And it's incredible how ignorant Mr. Bailey is here. Anyways, we see Helga catch on to Arnold and Gerald's situation. And luckily for Helga, she just received a pair of Nancy Spumoni snow boots, which her mother stood in line for 18 hours for. Now, I'm aware Miriam isn't necessarily a good mom by any means, but the fact that she could stand 18 hours in line to get a pair of snow boots but can't make her kid lunch half the time, that is genuinely impressively sad. I mean, on one hand, you can get them presents, but you can't give them the basic necessities to life. Alright. Afterwards, we see Helga get hit with a moral dilemma, as she calls it, and this causes her to have a huge decision to make. She could give up her awesome Christmas present to help someone else out in favor of someone else, or she could keep them and enjoy her present. We head over to Arnold, who is laying in his bed, just upset in a way over the fact that he tried his best and it still wasn't enough. I mean, the kid went through hundreds of stores, did all this research and Christmas shopping and whatever else, and still has came up short. We see Helga arrive at the government building, and we see her talk to Mr. Bailey and giving him a speech about how there is some little 9-year-old football-headed shaped kid whose entire world self-view is on the line, and Mr. Bailey just doesn't seem interested. He says it's late and he wants to go home, which is understandable, but at the same time, you kind of did make a promise, and now you have all the presents, so, And the entire time, Helga just jumps into him, explaining every single thing. If you don't do this, you gotta help this miracle happen. It's up to you. There's no way to really explain what Helga is saying without just showing you myself.
Are you that cold? Look into your heart, and we've got a choice here. Either you and I work all night to find a certain lost daughter, or you can leave now. But if you leave now, that little football-headed kid will never believe in miracles again.
We fade away and we open into the boarding room the next morning, where it's Christmas, and everyone receives a present except for Mr. Wynn. Oh, and Kakashka got coal. Afterwards, however, we see Arnold and Gerald sitting down, just upset at the situation given that they couldn't reunite Mr. Wynn with his daughter. However, we hear a knock at the door. For a long moment, we see Arnold and Gerald stare basically into Mr. Wynn, who is just looking into the fireplace. And then we see Mai appear, and it's incredibly heartwarming, this entire scene, to see family be reunited after years of war and pain and suffering. And you gotta imagine just what Mr. Wynn went through. He lost his daughter, had to go to a whole new country, get past the language barrier, and honestly, it's just incredibly impressive. After Mr. Wynn introduces everybody to his daughter, we see Arnold begin to question the miracle, and Gerald just says there's no need to question it, a miracle's a miracle. And then the special ends with this particular scene.
Merry Christmas, Arnold.
This ending scene with Helga just outside of the boarding house, it's so powerful in a way. It necessarily means that she gave up her Christmas time with her family just so she could help this government guy find a missing daughter to someone she's probably never met before, and it's incredibly just heartwarming. And it really goes to show that deep down, Helga does care. Even if it isn't her way, she still cares, and she sacrificed something that meant a lot to her for something much more meaningful. And in typical Hey Arnold fashion, there's always that moral or lesson, and honestly, just be selfless, and, when it comes to holidays, just act happy, be nice to people, because even the littlest of actions can mean the most, Anyways, I just wanted to make a video about my favorite Christmas special, probably ever. I think this one reigns superior above anything from Nickelodeon, and, we know Nickelodeon hasn't always had the best ideas, but this one in particular is incredible. Well, I guess that'll wrap things up fully. Now, I would just like to wish you guys all a Merry Christmas. Comment down below what you guys got. I myself got the Hey Arnold DVD box collection, the whole series, and I've been watching it for a few days now. It's pretty awesome. But as for the channel, I do plan on making videos going into next year, obviously. I still want to keep growing because, honestly, you guys are incredible, and to have the support that I'm given, it honestly means the world to me. So, thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, join the Discord, and if you have any video suggestions, leave them down below, along with what you got for Christmas. But that'll just about do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take it easy. Peace.